years old, married, have a 4.5 years old daughter. My parents live in Michigan. I have a sister. She lives in Toronto. 40 years, 4 decades. When I think back in my life, there's a lot to mention. And but today I'm going to focus on something about the language learning experience. Every decade, I found myself always facing some challenge related to the language. I was born in the 70s, in the early 70s, in a remote city in the northwest China. The city is sitting in the highest, in the world highest latitude, the world highest plateau. It's about 6,600 latitude. That's the reason my parents sent me to my grandma. So I spent my childhood with my grandma in a city very close to Shanghai, which is a southeast China, very rich place. In that region, everyone speaks a Shanghai dialect. The pronunciation of a Shanghai dialect is totally different with the Mandarin. You know, the Mandarin is the official language in China. So by the time I returned to my parents at the first grade, I had trouble to speak in the school. Nobody understood me. I have trouble to communicate with the classmate, teacher, even with my father. My father is from north. He don't know any Shanghai dialect. I still remember the days when I was counting my mom to do all the translation. But as a child, I picked up the language quickly. When it comes to learning language, kids are the best. So during the 80s, I was a student most of the time. There was 2 things I remember very clearly related to the language learning experience. The first one is my father had a chance to visit the United States, and he was doing some research in the Wayne University in Detroit. I returned to my grandma again. The reason is my mom had a full-time job. She had to take care of my sister. So I was back in that Shanghai dialect environment again. At that time, I had no problem to understand it, but I had trouble to speak it. Because after all, I haven't used that dialect for quite a while. I had a chance to learn it back by keep practicing. Unfortunately, I was afraid somebody will laugh at me, so I refused to say it. The consequence is I lost the capability to say the language, say the dialect, which I regret a lot. The second thing is during my middle school and high school, I liked the science course a lot. I don't like the liberal arts course. I hated English. It's not fun. it's not fun, and you have to remember all this word. It was my father who was in the United States at that time. He sent me a letter, said, United States is a wonderful country. You should come and see, and you should have your education here. He emphasized that in the letter again and again, English is important. That's your future. So the good thing is I didn't give up on English. I put extra efforts time into my English class. So by the time I graduated from high school, I got a pretty good grades in English. So in the early 90s, with the help of my father, after 2 years hard study, I transferred to a small college in Maryland. That was a very exciting moment in my life. At the meantime, the environment was totally changed. I thought my English is not that bad. Very soon, I found out I was short in the listening comprehension. I got trouble what the professor were talking about in the class, especially in those liberal arts class, the political science, the Western art. Back in China, the English class is more focused on the reading. There's a little listening and speak training. So finally, I found a way. I bought a voice recorder. I record the whole lecture. Then after that, I can listen to it over and over again. I spend an average 4 to 6 hours just to cover 50 minutes lecture. But that effort paid off. I even get A+ in the Western art. I don't really myself, but that paid off. So after I graduate from graduate school, I found my first job in Washington, D.C. Several years later, I moved to Michigan, and I stay with my current company since then. Again, when I switch from a student to an employee, the environment changed too. As a student, you don't have to talk too much. All you need to go to the class, finish your homework, pass the exam. As an employee, communication skills become very important. I still remember in my first company, I was always the quietest one in the meeting. Okay, no problem, I can do it. That's the only thing I say. In the past decade, I did make some progress in improving my communication skill, but it's very slow. Finally, I realized not only I have to overcome my fear, the fear to talk in public, but also I need a good environment. I believe today I found the right place. That's why I'm so excited today. I start a new journey in the first year of my 5th decade. Thank you.
Whoa. Thank you, very wonderful first speech.